Thanks. Okay, there we go. Good morning, everyone. Welcome to the Regional Advisory Council of the Pikes Peak Area Council of Governments Area Agency on Aging. I'm always proud of myself when I can get all that wording out. Glad to see everybody this morning, both in person. We have a few people in person and then members online as well. Let's begin by introduction. Melissa, do we have a quorum? Let me ask it. We have a quorum. That's great. Let's start with introductions. I'm Bea Babbitt, Chair of the Regional Advisory Council. We'll go around our table here and then we'll introduce people online.
Hi, I'm Rosemary Jaramillo with the Regional Advisory Council and the Alzheimer's Association.
Okay.
Okay.
How do I see participants?
They'll be scrolling along the side there, Mary, and there's a down arrow and an up arrow so you can see more.
I've got the agenda on my screen.
Right, but to the right, there's.
Oh, okay. I guess I got it. You can
Okay.
only see a couple at a time.
You can only see a few at a time.
Okay.
That's right.
Got it. Thank you.
Mhm.
Okay. Rebecca Shields. I'm a presenter with New Vision Professional Services.
Thank you, Rebecca. Marilyn?
Marilyn Bradish, Chair of Membership.
Okay. Yes.
I'm David Biner with Next Day Access.
Okay. Melissa?
So Melissa with the Pikes Peak Area Agency on Aging. And in the room, I'll just go ahead and announce who's in the room. We have Jason DeBueno from Silver Key, and we have Jessica Bechtel also with the Pikes Peak Area Council of Governments, and Jenny Nihill, who's the military fellow with us.
Welcome. And online, let's go to members first. Mary? Can you turn on your microphone?
Mary Kep, El Paso County Representative from the RAC.
Eric?
Good morning, Eric Bidwell. I work with DHS and I'm also a RAC member.
Marilyn Massey? No.
Yes,
Go ahead, Marilyn.
I represent Colorado Springs.
Wonderful. Jan?
Jen Nimmo, Colorado Community Health Alliance, Colorado's Medicaid program.
Bill?
I represent Park County.
Okay. Did I miss any members? All right. Let's go through our other guests. Would be Michelle, Community Dental. You want to say hi?
Good morning.
Okay. Let's see. Dave Summers, you want to say hi?
Good morning, Dave Summers from Invita.
Okay. Claire Anderson.
Good morning. I'm Claire Anderson. I'm with Innovations in Aging Collaborative and also a member of the Commission on Aging. Nice to see everybody.
Anybody?
Okay. Meiling Rodriguez.
Hi, everyone. Meiling Rodriguez. I am also with Innovations in Aging. I'm the program manager. Nice to see everyone.
Welcome. Jennifer Horn.
Good morning. I'm Jennifer Horn and I work in the Family Caregiver Support Center here at the Area Agency on Aging.
Scott.
Good morning, Scott Watson, Next Day Access.
Jenny Danner.
Hi, everyone. Jenny Danner with Park County Senior Coalition.
Did I miss anyone? Great. Well, welcome everyone. Happy to see you either here in person or online. And we're going to move forward with consent items related to our agenda and minutes. May I have a motion to approve and then we'll discuss?
Bill Bowles, I move we approve.
Okay, Bill Bowles has moved approval. Is there a second?
I second Marilyn Massey.
Thank you, Marilyn. Are there any additions or corrections to, first of all, the agenda? Hearing none. How about any additions or corrections to the minutes? Hearing none, let's go ahead and vote. All those in favor of approving our agenda and minutes, say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, say nay. The ayes have it and the agenda and minutes are approved. Public comments. Do we have any public comments today, Melissa?
We did not receive any. And Jody Barker is actually traveling today. He is on his way to participate in the state Unit on Aging meeting that's happening. So he is not with us today.
Okay, thank you. So let's then move on to our new vision presentation. Rebecca Shields, the floor is yours, and we'll get your microphone turned on.
Sure. What did she say? She's going to give me 15
Who
minutes.
speakers have 20 minutes? Okay.
Okay. I didn't hear what she said. She's going to give me 15 minutes. Oh, okay. I guess it's on. Good morning. I'm Rebecca, and thank you for giving me the opportunity to present. I think we were all kind of caught short of not being able to be here in 2020, so I'm glad to be able to come this morning to make up for it. I think I know a lot of you, but for those of you who have not met or haven't had the opportunity to talk with, I look forward to that. And I also look forward to your questions and comments so that, you know, we might be able to work together, or if you have ideas, certainly I'm open to that. New Vision Professional Services was it came together back in 2008, and it was a dream of mine that I had for a long time. I've been in human services for clear back to about 1985, when I started working for different agencies, serving individuals with disabilities. And that was a long time before even ADA came out. So there was a lot of situations that really didn't get what they needed because there weren't laws to protect people and to help them. After my graduate degree, then I moved on and worked for several agencies and tried to make a difference in people's lives. And after I received my graduate degree in 2006, I decided that I really wanted to do more than that. I felt like I had a lot to offer. So I began some research and pulled a lot of information together and talked with people and took some classes at the, I went back to my old standing ground of UCCS and met with the Small Business Bureau and took some classes and got information from them. In 2008, I finally kind of got my feet on the ground. And in the meantime of all of that, I was supporting seniors with vision loss through a program that I was asked to do, was just doing support groups and meeting with them a couple of times a month. And I did that all the way from 2000 clear up until 2008, when I decided to open my business and make it more official. I also worked a crisis line for the state of Colorado for an agency that serves blind and visually impaired folks. And I did it on an 800 number, so it was statewide. And I served people in that way for a good 10 years. But even then, with all of that, I felt like I wanted to do more. So New Vision came about with a lot of work and a lot of commitment on my part, and a lot of information that I felt like would really help people. So today we are further along than we even were then. And I want to make sure to let you know that with the help of PPACG, our program has been very successful, and I feel like we have really helped many people. And we're very grateful. I don't know if a lot of you know this, but the month of October is supposedly recognition of blind and visually impaired people. I doubt if you've heard very much about that, because I don't think that society has really put that into perspective and have really done much with that. You might have heard about today being National Chocolate Day. I heard that, and that was a big deal. But I certainly haven't heard very little about this being a month for recognition of what blind and visually impaired people really are able to do, and often don't get the opportunity to do because of the barriers that are placed by society in our way, and also just everyday, day-to-day barriers that prevent us from being able to be as successful as the word is often spoken as atypical. The seniors that we serve, 60 and older, many of them have begin to lose vision either before 60 or are in that process now at a late age. There are a couple eye conditions that are very prevalent to people 60 and over. Glaucoma is probably listed as one of the first real robbers of vision. Macular degeneration is right up there with it. And of course, diabetic retinopathy is a third disease that is often the cause of the lack of vision or complete vision loss. We are located over in the Gulf Acres Plaza there, where the senior center is, and we have education classes for individuals to come and learn acts of daily living. I should say relearn, because they're you know, people who have been around and have had lots of experiences in their life, but most of them have done their life experience with vision. So they have to relearn how to experience life and enjoy life with vision loss. And so we want them to continue to have quality of life and to be able to stay in their own homes, maintain their home, and continue to benefit from what they can give their community and what the community can offer them. So we have classes of, you know, like I said, of daily living. If a person has decided that they no longer can read print and would like technology use or We have Braille students that are learning Braille and learning how to manage their lives with looking at a recipe or phone numbers or being able to phone their doctor when needed, and can write down information after, maybe they've been on a phone call and want to be sure they want to remember what they were told. So probably the Braille that they're learning, they won't read novels with, but it is functional Braille skills that they can rely on, that they certainly no longer can rely on their physical vision to help them. We learn a lot about the resources that are available for people in whatever circumstances they may have, how to find those resources. And a lot of the folks are not computer literate, and they have a very difficult time with the change of using technology today. So we try to help them to access resources in any way that they can. We're not a cookie cutter agency where we expect everyone to do the same. We work strictly on an individual basis and go on what they can learn. A big part of our program is the learning of using a white cane and the navigation from point A to point B, of getting safely to your mailbox, or to if you want to go out on your patio and you want to make sure you don't fall, and you don't know where you're going. So I have a lady who does the orientation mobility instruction, and she's been a teacher for the blind for many years and is very wonderful with seniors. The life is not as for anyone these days, as we've been all talking about, and you can be in a crowd and hear people talk about how life is not what it used to be. I've heard that expression a lot, and they're referring to how it wasn't like this. We didn't have to hide behind a mask, or feel safer with a mask, or stay home like we did in 2020. We'd never experienced anything like that. And that was a change. And we all had a hard time adjusting to that, and it interfered with our lives. But everyone had the hope that, it was going to change and get better for us, and that it wouldn't be this way forever. But let me reassure you of something. People with onset of vision loss, and it's this way with other disabilities, but I'm speaking to you today about my clientele, which is vision loss. It isn't that way. They face this every day. They will live with it for the rest of their life, unless a miracle happens and they, were to medically be completely cured of what happens. But for the most part, this is the way it's going to be. So they can't sit in a crowd and say, well, we hope it gets better, things will change, or it will not be this way in a year or 6 months. What they have to say to themselves is, what do I do now that it's this way? How can I still enjoy life? And what can I offer someone else? And what can they, how can you help me to continue to be brave and to face what is ahead of me? So we want people to feel a sense of belonging when they come to the office. It's a place where they can feel free to share their thoughts and questions, their embarrassing moments. They can come and sit in a group and learn from each other, and learn about what is available to them, what their rights are. You may wonder, well, aren't their rights the same as they were before they lost vision? You'd be surprised. How many times do you just jump in your car and you go to the grocery store, you go in, you get what you need, And yeah, you have every right to walk in and just look on your shelves and get what you need, and you go and you pay for it and you walk out, and you've done everything, but when you go to the grocery store and you can't get to the department where what you need, you have to ask for help. And what would you do if someone said, well, we can't help you right now, we don't have enough management to help you, this is during COVID and we have no service, we can't do anything for you? And the person says, well, I need some groceries. Well, maybe you should go home and order them online. That's what one of my clients was told at Walmart the other day, when she went to the grocery store by herself and tried to get some help. They couldn't help her. They refused to, but yet she has the right to get groceries and to be there, but no one could help her. So there's barriers that prevent folks from being able to do not only what is a need, but what they want to do. So through this program, we hope to help dissolve some barriers. We hope to help them find ways to get around the barrier and to offer them the encouragement that they can still do this. I do a lot with helping them to still belong in their families, in their neighborhood, and to other situations that they've always been a part of. They no longer want to go places. They feel conspicuous. They feel like they don't belong. They feel like everyone's watching them. And what if they make a mistake? Well, we learn how not to feel that way. And I have had to do that my whole life. And I hope that I can be a guide to them, be an encouragement to them, and be I guess, just being an experienced person who gives them hope, who knows the barriers. I've lived through barriers. I also face them every day, but I have to overcome them somehow. And the only way you overcome them is with the coping mechanisms that you develop. And I'm trying to help my folks develop those coping mechanisms because they want to shut down. They have family members who say, oh, you need to be in assisted living. We can't deal with you anymore. And then also, the family members are interested in their inheritance and want to make sure mom and dad have what they need, but yet they don't want to, deal with them. Those are situations also.
Rebecca, this is Melissa.
Okay, that's my timer.
And I'm going to give you, if you want to make some wrap-up comments, and then we
Okay.
can have time for questions.
All right.
Thank you.
If she'd waved the flag, I would have kept talking because I wouldn't have seen it. So I wouldn't have had any reason to quit talking, but she gave me an audio cue, so I have to obey, right? I just want to say that if any of you have individuals who you believe could benefit from what we do, we're there, we're happy to help you. If transportation was not such a barrier, I would be happy to help. There are people in Teller County and northern El Paso County who need help, but because of transportation issues, they can't get to me and I often can't get to them. But if you have folks who I can talk to and try to work something out, I'm happy to do that. So always give me a call. And for those of you out there, I heard lots of names who I've spoken with and have given me some referrals. Thank you so much. And I brought, if you need a pamphlet, I brought one so you can have our information. Thanks so much.
Thank you, Rebecca. I was wondering, what is the best way to handle that situation in a store when you need help? Who's the best person to go to get some help?
Well, sometimes there isn't anybody because they'll tell you, you can ask for a manager, but they'll say, well, there isn't one here. I had someone call my office the other day and she was trying to take her grandchildren, of all places, to the Ark to get a costume. And she, her grandchildren were helping her too, because she's visually impaired, but she wanted a store person. And of all places that we donate items to for people with disabilities, that store said, well, we don't have anybody. Could you come back tomorrow? We might have someone then. She asked for a manager and they said the managers were all out to lunch. I bet they were. So, you know, it's hard to know sometimes. But, you know, you just have to keep pushing buttons.
Right.
But it's really hard.
I
That
can-
isn't the only thing. Medical offices, you walk into an office and I have been told before, you know, well, here's this paperwork. Well, can you help me fill it out? Oh, no, we can't do that. Well, maybe you should have made your appointment and we could have mailed it to you and someone help you fill it and you could fill it out at home. No. I mean, it's the way it is. There isn't any good solution sometimes.
Right. Are there other questions? I think, Mary, you had a question?
Yeah, I wasn't sure how to do it today. Rebecca, I'm trying to do outreach with the community for the deaf, and I'm not getting any particular indication that the school for the deaf is interested in answering any of my questions. And I'm wondering if you have a working relationship with the school for the blind.
Well, one thing you have to remember that the school serves individuals from birth to 21 and nothing beyond that. So, you know, if you're trying to, you know, get help for someone who's over 21, that isn't their concern. And so they probably won't return your call. I have had them call me before when someone has called and needed help and they knew they couldn't do anything, and they've called me for people in the community who are blind or visually impaired. But why don't you, I can get my information. Melissa Martz has my information, and you can certainly call me and I could probably give you some resources for the deaf that might help you.
Oh,
If
thank
could
you.
Talk to me a little more about that, you know, later. Yeah, I'd be happy to help you with that.
Thank you. Other questions for Rebecca?
Yeah,
Bill Bowles
Rebecca,
here.
it's Marilyn, right next to you here. Is there any sort of volunteer bank in place for people to call upon to help, like an elderly person shop? I mean, I know you talked about trying to get to a store and have a manager help you, but with all of the things that you do and provide, is there a volunteer bank for helping a visually impaired person, say, get on a schedule to help them shop once a week or once a month?
Well, and New Vision does have some volunteers, and we often use volunteers for lots of things. And I have in times past when a client has told me that they needed something specific, and I've had a volunteer meet them at the store before and help them. Like if once for example, I had a lady about 3-4 years ago, and she needed to buy a dress for her granddaughter's wedding out of state. And she had no one to take her to look for a dress. So I said to her, I said, okay. I said, if you tell me where you want to shop, and I said, and maybe I can, and I'll even go with the volunteer and we'll help you find, and well, she had a couple ideas of stores. So we chose, the mall, and there was more than one store she could get. We walked around in, and she took the bus to Chapel Hills Mall. She didn't live too far from there. And I went up there, and a friend of mine went, and she gave her time. And so it worked out, and we helped her find a dress, and she was thrilled to death. But department stores are horrible for helping you. Pennies and Dillard's and those stores, no, they don't want to help you at all. And now during COVID, there is no one to help, I guess. So it's really tough. So you're right. And if I know if a person has a need and they tell me ahead of time, then, volunteers are a great resource. You're right.
Any other questions online?
It's Bill Bowles. Had a question about the expansion into Park County.
Bill Bowles is wondering about expansion into Park County.
I think, Bill, that would be a great idea. And if there's a need up there, I believe there is a need up there. I've heard of some, and we'd be happy to help if we could. Good to hear from you, Bill. I've heard you've been ill, so good to hear you.
I think I'm going to survive this.
I've known Bill for years, so.
Great. Okay, well, thank you so much, Rebecca. We really appreciated your.
I will tell you, basically, Melissa, a 1 minute thing to can cut me off. I have a client right now who is new to vision loss, lives outside the Metro Mobility area, and he's really angry right now about his vision loss. But he had no food in his house, and he lost vision very quickly. He didn't get help for his eye disease, and it has taken him by surprise, and he's very limited right now at all. Well, finally, when he didn't have food and he didn't know what to do, he went outside and he started waving his arms around and acting kind of, out of it. And the sheriff stopped. And he said, "Do you need help?" And then the man said, "I need more than help. I need to see what I'm doing, and I can't." And he was really angry, and the sheriff understood he meant business. And he said, "I can't see. I don't even know what the light looks like anymore." Well, now this sheriff has taken on his own time off duty to help this man go shopping for food. And every month he comes to this man's house and takes him and buys and the man buys his own food, but the gentleman goes with him. Now, this man has gotten to the point where he's gotten very dependent on this man, and the sheriff is needing to somehow find a way to let up a little bit. And so I got a call from a social worker who referred this client. I'm trying to help him. He's really angry. I found a volunteer who is willing to, do some stuff with him, but he's not ready for that because he is convinced he's going to be better someday, and he's going to do it, and it's going to go away. And it's not. It's bad. And glaucoma has taken almost all of his vision. So the barriers are huge for this man. But even a volunteer right now isn't what he needs. He needs some real coping skills, and he's not ready for that. And it's a very empty world for him right now. So there's lots of people out there who are really struggling.
I wonder if I could ask a question, B.
Sure, Mary.
Who's on your staff that's professionally qualified to help with these counseling issues?
Well, I have a master's in counseling, and so I do a lot of it, and my staff have background in human services also, and also everyone on my staff is very familiar with the grief cycle of vision loss and have been with people with vision loss for a long time. So I think we know the red flags, and we know what is happening, but the person has to be able to want to have help. You can't force them. You can't force help.
Right. Jason, you had something to
Yeah,
add?
I just wanted to share with you that Silver Key does have case management and behavioral health services that can help to gear up for the support of a volunteer eventually to be available. Because you're right, there's a whole lot more of the loss process, the grieving process, and to be able to help manage that from a behavioral health perspective so that we can position for an eventual volunteer. I just put that out there that if there was a way to for us to help with the situation, I'd be glad to link you to our behavioral health team at Silver Key.
Well, that'd be great if he would accept that.
Right.
And that's great. I mean, I'm happy to work with you on that one too. And so, but I mean, I've been trying to get this gentleman to, think about what would really benefit him and how it would help him, but he's not ready to do that. He's so angry right now.
Well, Perhaps you could talk afterwards
Yeah, that's
well,
fine.
thank you again, Rebecca. I'm
Thank
going to
you.
have to move on
Yep.
to our presentation by Next Day Access. Go ahead.
You want me to move?
Nope, you're fine.
Oh.
So folks on Zoom, do you see the Next Day Access beginning of the slideshow on your screens?
No.
No.
Okay, so hold on a second.
Stop share. That's what I asked. It's weird. And then go back over to your share screen. Put them more. Share screen. Okay. And then let's do this one. Try that. You can share.
So folks in Zoom, do you see the Next Day Access screen now?
Yes.
Okay. Yeah. All right. And you should be able to just click on it. Keep that back up.
Okay, I think we're ready.
I think so. Let me just make sure I can do the little advancing here. Click with you here. Oh, now I'm going backwards. Shoot. These are arrows. Try your arrows. Okay, we are ready, Dave.
I'm David Biner with Next Day Access. We've been a AAA. There we go. Hi, I'm Dave with Next Day Access. Proud to be here. I believe Next Day Access is in its 6th year of being a grantee through the AAA. We specialize in home and bathroom safety and accessibility. Next slide. Pretty nice mission statement. We empower independence by enabling our clients to stay safe in their own homes. Lots of people today just want to, I've lived here for 40 years. I want to stay here for another 40 years. That's what I want to do. We provide and install commercial and residential accessibility solutions and equipment. Next slide. Maybe. Okay. While not all these services are provided through the grant, we do wheelchair ramps, portable ramps, threshold ramps, which are the ramps that would be right at your doorway going into your house. A lot of people have problems negotiating that little half inch. It's not such a little half inch when you trip over it, but that's what a threshold ramp is. We do lots of stair lifts. We do porch lifts, patient lifts. We do a ton of grab bars. We've really gotten into bathroom modifications in the last year and a half. We do full bathroom modifications, pool lifts, which in Colorado would be more like a hot tub lift, not a whole lot of pools in the springs. And we do portable showers. And I see a little typo there, but next. When I first started with AAA, I worked out of my house. I had a small barn on my property, and that was Next Day Access. About a year and a half, 2 years ago, we actually moved to a retail location, which is on Chestnut Street, right off Garden of the Gods. We have a big warehouse and a showroom and all kinds of neat stuff. Next. These are 2 examples of stair lifts that we install. The one on the right is a simpler, less expensive straight line A to B stair lift. The one on the left is actually a Handicare 1100. And that's a stair lift that does a full power option. So when it gets to the top of the stairs, if you push a button, it swivels by itself. And if you push another button, the footrest goes up all by itself. It's a pretty neat machine. Next. We do have a small inventory of scooters and wheelchairs. Some are new, some are used. Just another offering we make at our store. Next. That's an example of the type of ramp that we install in Colorado. That's called an expanded metal ramp. Nice thing about it is that light weather goes right through it, as opposed to some of the solid surface ramps that kind of build up snow and ice. That's our typical example of a ramp that we install. Next. We are an age-friendly certified business through the Better Business Bureau. I believe we were the second certified business in the Springs. We jumped on that program pretty early in its infancy and have maintained our accreditation ever since. This year, since September, this year to date, we have served 223 clients. Next. Keep going. I'm not sure why this. Keep going. We install hundreds of grab bars on the AAA grant. It's probably the largest thing that we do through the AAA grant. Keep going. And we have installed about so far, year to date, about 500 grab bars in this funding year. Keep going, just pictures. We do a lot of exterior railings. That's the one of the other things we do that we get a lot of call for are interior and exterior railings. Keep going. All of our railings are, we have a welder that works for us and does a lot of this work for us. And they're all custom made and they're all custom powder coated. They're not spray painted. Next. We do interior railings. We do some wood. We've kind of gone away from wood. I'll show you what we've really gone to. That's called a promenade railing. We've started to go more towards these. That is a aluminum railing that has a wood veneer on it. We are just so busy. We really don't have time to sand and stain and clear and sand and stain and clear. I don't have the manpower for it. So these, we go out and we measure for these. We cut them to order or have them cut for us at the manufacturer, and we come in and we install them. That's another example of a promenade railing. We do other little things that kind of aren't necessarily chore services, but we put in handheld showers for people and toilet safety frames and shower chairs. All the installers carry a couple of these things on their truck. So if someone says, hey, I really need this, we can provide that for them. Pretty basic stuff. Next. Next. That's called a stander pole. That's a floor to ceiling pressure mounted pole that we put in bathrooms. We put in bedrooms to help people get out of bed. Generally not something we carry one of on every vehicle, but we do provide those, and they're kind of nice because they're not permanently affixed in most situations. In most situations, we can do them with just pressure fitting them to the floor and the ceiling. If we do have a case where the person is really unsteady or on the heavier side, we do recommend mounting them into the ceiling. We do steps. That's a set of 2 steps. They come as a modular item. And there are people who they might have had, this could have been something where the steps fell apart and we showed up and they had 2 cinder blocks there, and that's what they were using to get in and out of the house. So we do modular aluminum steps. Next. Just to go back to the steps, in certain circumstances, and a lot of times it doesn't quite work with the grant, we do build custom wood steps. We build things that we call walker steps. So the steps are actually much deeper, so you can actually put a walker up on the step and step up onto the step and get up that way. And they always have railings on them and things like that. But we do custom work like that. Next. I talked about a threshold ramp earlier. That is a threshold ramp. That's called a safe path threshold ramp. They're made out of recycled tires. They're quite that one probably weighs about 50 pounds. That's sitting right there, And that's something that people, that's probably at least an inch or an inch and a half thick mat. So if people are in walkers or wheelchairs or scooters for that matter, and they can't get in and out of the house because of that big bump at the threshold, that's actually what we recommend and install. And there's actually a smaller one on the inside of the door. You can see that's a kind of more of a 1/2 inch one. Next. COVID has been a challenge. I will say it's, the world has opened up a little bit, but there was a period where, just people didn't want anyone in their house, especially our demographic. And we still have people who are just scared to have people in their house, no matter how many masks and gloves and booties. And yes, we're vaccinated, and just people are, particularly the 65 and over crowd, are just scared to have people in their house still. Next. All of our technicians are noted that if they see something that they have to report it. We do when we're filling out, when we are putting the questionnaires into Peer Place. If we see that they're scoring low on some of these things, I know Lisa Aldridge years ago said, give us a call, we'll take care of it. So we still, work under that premise. Next. One of our major sources of referrals now, and we'll see that a little bit later, but our home health agencies. They all know about us, and we get calls from all kinds of CNAs and OTs and PTs. So that's one of our major referral sources. Like I said, because they know us, they know, people know the work that we do, and it's good work. Our technicians are prompt and clean and caring, and say yes sir or no ma'am, and we've nurtured that reputation, and it has kept us going over the years. And again, we get a lot of Mrs. McGillicuddy calls up and says, Mrs. Jones had you over, I saw your truck outside, what do you guys do? A lot of times I say, what can I get for free? So that's but we've, a lot of our referrals are now past clients. I think that's about it. Questions?
Okay, do we have questions for David?
Yeah, back to the old squeaky wheel. What sort of service can we get up in the northeastern part of the northwestern Park County and such?
We have debated this for years, and I'm not a naysayer, but I really have a difficult time coming out to Bailey and out to Park County work for us in terms of not being a giant monetary drain. It's so far away that we would have to go out and do evaluations and then come back and do all the work at a later date. And we've really tried to debate doing that. We do that. The same question comes up every year at this presentation, and we have not found a way to make going out to park work yet.
So this is Melissa, and I just want to mention that the last time we did talk about this, one of the pieces that we started to try to explore, and this was before Park County Senior Coalition had hired Jenny, but we had started, and then when Jenny came on, the conversation I think was started again, but may have kind of dropped to the bottom of things that Jenny as a new executive director has to look into doing. But we did start to look at whether or not the AAA funding that Park County Senior Coalition gets could help do some of these build outs up in Park County. And of course, that was going to mean that Park County Senior Coalition was going to have to do some contracting with individuals in the area who would have the construction skills to do some of the things that Next Day Access does. But I just want to put that back out there as a reminder that one of the solutions that we were kind of talking about at the time was, Park County Senior Coalition potentially asking for additional funding in their chore program and looking at hiring handymen up in the area to be able to do some of this. So That was kind of the last conversation that happened. And Jenny, and I see that Amy Mitchell, County Commissioner up there in Park County, was on the call. If you guys have any questions about that, you can definitely get back in touch with me and we can dig a little deeper. Of course, include Bill in that conversation too. Hope that helps a little bit. Jenny Danner, if you want to make any comments about that, if this rings a bell at all with you, or if you want to make any comments about that.
Well, thank you for bringing that to my attention. I absolutely will discuss this more with you.
Sounds good.
Any more-
Dave, you
any
might
more-
be off the hook.
There we go. Any more questions for me?
Mary?
Yes, I do have a question. The lady who calls up you and says, what can I get for free? I'd be interested to know what is the answer to that question. I'm not sure where the funding comes from. I'm new with the RAC, so I don't know. Are we supporting you for installation services? I'm assuming that people are still buying the things from your store. But what is the connection between Next Day and this organization here?
So Next Day Access,
Dave,
uh,
put on your,
it is.
is it on?
Yes.
Oh, sorry.
Next Day Access receives a grant from AAA annually. And we supply chore services to a lot of these people. So they look at it as free. We on the phone say it's at no cost to you because nothing's free. So a lot of what we do, which was in the presentation, is grab bars and railings. That's the mainstay of what we do for on the AAA grant.
But who pays for that? I mean, when someone calls up and they say, I've got to get some things in my home for my mother,
The AAA
I don't have
grant,
any money. Can you help? Is that how you do that with the grant?
essentially.
A little more detail, please.
I'm not quite sure what you're driving at.
Is the service so that both the grab bars and the installation would be covered by the grant?
Yes.
I think that's what Mary is.
Yeah, it's at no cost to them. the
Oh,
service that
okay,
we
great.
provide.
Thank you. That was
Okay.
exactly what I wanted to know, B. Thank
Okay.
you so much.
Sure, no. Any other questions? Well, thank you so much,
Yeah, well,
David.
yeah.
We certainly appreciate your services. And I think, as I told the group in an earlier meeting, I had a reunion with 4 of my siblings this year, and we're in the 75 to 83 age range. So all of these kinds of adaptations in our homes are just, they're becoming relevant and something needed for many of us.
We've enjoyed we enjoy our time helping people. And these are little things that really help.
Wonderful.
Okay.
Well, thank you for sharing with us today. Okay,
One brief one here.
okay, Bill.
Bill, back, if somebody up in Park County takes measurements, can you make up grab rails for them and ship them up for installation?
I guess so. I'd be very hesitant to, send you a railing. And then someone says, oh, it doesn't quite fit. But yeah, we do our own measurements, so we kind of know what we're looking at. But I guess we could probably have someone weld something up. I'm not quite sure what the shipping costs would be to ship railings to Park County, but sure.
Thank you.
Uh-huh.
Sounds like something you could talk over and see whether it's viable or not. Definitely. Okay, we're going to move on then to our housing discussion with our Silver Key. This discussion where everyone here Jason is very excited about your development of a low-income housing. And some of our discussion is related to some of the design issues related to those apartments, et cetera. And so people had lots of ideas they wanted to share with you. But if you want to give us an overview first of what you're developing, and then we'll have a few questions for you, and a
Yeah.
few ideas we want to share.
Thank you. And thanks for the invitation, Melissa. Be appreciated, and members of the RAC. Just so everybody understands where we're at right now, we are moving forward with an application to build a 50-unit affordable housing project on the campus of Silver Key, which is an exciting opportunity for the community. And actually, some may wonder, Silver Key moving into housing, how does that make sense? What you may not know is that Silver Key has been in housing since the 80s, and the Senior Heritage Project, which is over at 1410 North Hancock Avenue, has actually been governed by Silver Key since the 80s. And in fact, HUD has just given us approval to recast the name and rebrand it to Silver Key Apartments. So that will be kind of, you're getting the pre-information about an eventual note out there that we will be changing the name of the Senior Heritage Plaza to be recognized in what Silver Key has been, the governance and the actual property management is the Colorado Springs Housing Authority with that particular initiative. Related to this project, we are working to be able to have the lowest percentage of area median income apartments, meaning that we want to be able to have this to be for the lowest income seniors in our community. However, the funding that we have causes a little bit of a challenge to be able to be at the very, very lowest rate. That said, we right now have received a grant from the Colorado Springs Health Foundation. We just recently received that for $100,000 to help with some of our pre-development costs. And then also another entity called Pikes Peak Real Estate Fund was able to grant us $50,000 loan on our pre-development costs as well. So with those two additional funds, what that means is we have a gap of about $800,000 to be able to have several units at the 30% level, and then some at the 40%, and maybe a couple at the 50%. So what that said another way, any money that we raise above the $800,000 will allow for us to be able to get to that very, very lowest income, because we won't have to take out as high of a rate of mortgage and the amount of lending that we will be required to do. So with that, and talking about some of the design features, we certainly have a list of design features that we've been working through. It was called the big list. As David was talking, the big list, when you talk about anything building, you can dream big, and then you get to the reality of what does it cost to do this. So we certainly have included a number of items within our initial brainstorming about what this can be for this particular initiative. And we have to just balance that with the resources we have to actually get to the core of what this is, which is having the units available for people who otherwise would not have another place to be able to have housing. So with that, that's where we're at right now. Things are moving forward in great ways, and we'll be submitting our application in February. And we really do need to raise that $800,000 before our application goes in. So my target is January 15th to be able to raise that gap dollar. And then anything above that, again, helps to whittle down the overall cost so we can get to as much affordability of all those 50 units as possible. So from a framework perspective, that's where we're at. I certainly can open to any questions and be able to address any concerns around maybe some of the design features that you might like to see.
Right. Before we go on to the design, could you tell us, so there are going to be 50 units in
50 units, yeah.
50 units in the apartment, and how many of those will be below market rate rentals?
All of them will be below market rate, but it's the lowest of the low that we're trying to get to. And that's the part that is a little bit of a struggle. And just so you know, with the resources we have, we think we're going to be able to have 3 to 5 2-bedroom apartments. The rest will be single units. So we're trying to evaluate that. And then the other thing that we are moving through is gaining some support from the VA to be able to have 5 to 7 units specifically for veteran seniors to be able to live in the apartments as well. So we've got a few different things that we're working on in the path until we apply.
Ideas you wanted to share. I can recall a few that were brought up at previous meetings. Well, let me throw it out, and then as we talk, other people can add. A couple of ideas that came up were things like if, let's say siblings, me and my sister, we want to come rent a 2-bedroom apartment together. One of the things somebody raised is a typical apartment has this wonderful master bedroom, and then it has this tiny little second bedroom, and the notion of equal sized bedrooms for siblings. Would something like that be possible?
Yeah, for the 3 to 5 units of 2-bedroom that we will have, they're equal size rooms, but it's only 1 bathroom. We don't have the money to be able to install 2 bathrooms into the unit. So that's one of the key pieces. Candidly, with an arrangement like what you talked about with siblings, both would have to qualify at the lowest income to be able to meet eligibility for that particular unit. However, the other reason why we have the 2-bedroom option is going back to David's comment about what New Day is doing to be able to keep people at home. We know that sometimes accessibility and different devices need to come into play for an individual. So they would have the second unit to be able to house some of that larger support that somebody may need from a durable medical equipment type perspective. So yes, roommates can be an option. The intent of it is really to be able to be at the lowest income for both to qualify, and we would have the availability of space to allow for medical equipment that people may need to sustain to be able to live as long as possible in the property. Just as a side related to what was talked about with home modification and the work that happens with grab bars, all of them are not being outfitted initially with grab bars or that type of thing, but what the design features are easily modified. What it is that if you think about when the pictures that were just shared in his presentation, David's presentation, many of the homes were not necessarily established to easily install grab bars. These are easy design. And what that means is we'll be able to retrofit and just like that for this to happen. We had talked about initially doing it for all. The problem with that is it's very costly when many of the residents may not need that initially. We could support as they may need that support. So we're trying to also be mindful of the resources we have to stage through as people age in the home. And that concept and feature comes out of the area agency, the AARP, the Association of Retired Persons. And with that, they've got some design features that we're adopting in this build.
Another idea that was mentioned in one of our discussions was the notion of, in hotels, sometimes you have a door between 2 units because there's maybe it's a caregiver and someone they're caring for, or, other circumstances where that might be a useful feature. Is that included in your plans?
It's funny that you say that. I wanted to include that in our plans, but we cannot afford to do that in our plans. So that will not be an option. And so the reason why I wanted to have this particularly is because what I wanted to do is be able to have one of the units to be an availability for, not to go into too much detail, but what we would have is a resident assistant, if you will, like in a college dorm arrangement. And sometimes during the weekends when the fire or the police department gets involved with a senior who's disoriented or doesn't have family available, and it takes through the weekend to be able to find an option for care, what I wanted to do is have that resident assistant agree that maybe they'd be able to have that second bedroom to be available as a short-term sheltering for that senior until we would be able to move forward with finding some option for placement. The challenge is that the way that this particular funding stream comes into play, it's not a problem with the funder, it's a problem with the IRS. The IRS does not recognize that as an option in a building like this. So unless it's an act of Congress, which we're not going to be able to get done by January 15th, we would have to step away from that. So it was not financially viable for us to do that.
Okay. Other questions? Mary? Can you turn on your microphone? Okay.
Got it. Okay. I'm in Fountain Valley and we're working a lot right now on an issue about grocery accessibility. And one of the ideas that we're kicking around is that there should be a centrally located locker so that people who are able to take advantage of sales in the grocery stores but don't have any place to put that stuff that there would be a locker where they could put it and then have their key and they would have accessibility. I wonder if this might be an idea for your apartment complex as well, to have, like, you probably have a laundry room available, but would you also be able to have lockers where people could put frozen food that they're able to buy on sale?
Great question, Mary. So right now, the design feature has that each one of the units will have its own washer and dryer. So we will not have a laundromat kind of arrangement. From a community storage perspective, we do have a space allocated for that type of feature design. Now, the other thing about this particular unit that makes us different than the other applicants that are going to be out there is because we're associated right next to Silver Key, on Silver Key's campus. Of course, we have our full pantry, we have full frozen food in the pantry. Many of the individuals being at this level of income will qualify for all of our frozen product that would be available to them. So that storage issue becomes less of an issue on food product. But where it becomes an issue is that if there's larger things that are benefiting the community residents. So we will have a way for community residents to store things. For example, if we had community parties and community bingo and things like that, there's a large storage that we have earmarked for that type of thing, but you would be able to access our pantry for any frozen foods, any of the fresh foods. And then, of course, being on campus, we would have on the Silver Key campus, it will be one of our Connection Cafe sites, meaning that we have a full meal program available for lunch for the seniors that reside there as well.
This sounds like a fantastic program for people who live in Colorado Springs. But there are 3 counties involved in the RAC, and Fountain is part of El Paso County. Bill Boyles is working with Park. And then there's also Teller. Where do these services start to expand into the other areas of the region outside of Colorado Springs?
Yeah, so that's a great question. So what we have right now is we just expanded to Falcon, Peyton, and Calhan. That's still in El Paso County, but we just started new programming out there. The problem is, as David was so eloquently saying, there's only so much dollar, not everything's free. So what happened is that we were able to get some county funds that allowed for some of that expansion to be able to start new programming in those areas, and that's gone exceedingly well in the areas I just described in those cities or towns. I am certainly not opposed to moving into Teller and Park County. I think there's providers already out there. I think the bigger question is that how do we maybe tap into funds outside of what the traditional PPACG funding mechanism allows from Older American Act, and maybe through county support, maybe through city support, maybe those different agencies that are out there can do some expansion. Again, I'm not opposed to being part of those conversations, but we simply didn't want to step on toes in different areas if those resources were available to expand, Mary.
If somebody from Fountain wanted some frozen produce and it's not available in Fountain, or it's not available in Conifer or wherever, can they drive into Silver Key campus and use that food service there?
Yeah, you
Or do they
can.
need to be in a specific area that qualifies?
Nope, they can, Mary. They would be able to drive to Silver Key and get some of that product for sure. And then the other thing, Mary, and a couple people had talked about the impact of COVID. So with COVID, we started to deliver our frozen produce to the community. So we do that across El Paso County right now, and we deliver. I think we've got 250 people that we're supporting that just simply can't get to Silver Key for this. So we've now, through COVID, we were able to redesign a vehicle with AAA support and being able to have that available across county as much as possible. And I don't want to suggest at all that there's not gaps, Mary. There are. Access is always challenged in some of the rural areas for sure.
But the other counties, if they had a freezer truck, they could come down and load up and take it back?
So that would be an arrangement directly with Care and Share, if you're talking, because we're the largest distribution site for Care and Share. But in that regard, Mary, that would be probably a conversation directly with Care and Share. I know they've done those kind of arrangements, and I would imagine that they would be open to that conversation. They've been very supportive of our efforts. Sure.
Great.
And this is Melissa B. I want to just interrupt for 1 second. I also know Jennifer has a question, and
I see it.
Yeah. And so, but before we go to Jennifer, I just wanted to mention 2 things here in response to some of what Mary's bringing up. The first one, when I'm hearing some of the questions about Silver Key. I think that for new members on the RAC and maybe even members who've been around for a while, if anybody wanted to do tours of some of our organizations, maybe get in touch with me. We can try to set that up, whether we go tour the New Vision facility, whether we go tour Silver Key. And of course, you can do that on your own as well. You don't have to wait for me to help set something up. You can definitely reach out, and I know Silver Key will meet you at the door, and Rebecca would too. But if anybody's interested and wants to go visit any of our contracted partners, reach out to me, let me know. Because I think that helps a lot to kind of understand the scope of what folks are doing. And then the second part, Mary, when you brought up about the work you're doing around food and food insecurity in Fountain, we do have on the call today folks from the Pikes Peak Commission on Aging who are responsible for advocacy and policy work. And so it might be good for Mei Ling and Claire and Debbie and you to get together and have a conversation about the work that's happening in Fountain around food insecurity. And so I can get you guys all connected after this meeting. And that's all I'll say, and I'll turn it back over to B.
Okay, Jennifer Horn, you have some questions. You have a whole series of them. You might
I
want to take them one
do.
or two at a time.
I will, and I'll try to speak slowly as well. As far as the housing, what are the eligibility requirements to apply and qualify for the housing in the apartments? And what percentage of their income will go to the cost of rent?
Yeah, so good question. So it'll be 30% of their income will go to the cost of rents. We'll start with that answer first. To qualify, we are still evaluating this, but likely it's going to be age 62 and older units. We do have an option for 55 and older. The reason why we have not gone to the 55 is because I think that what we're intending to do is the lowest income in the highest level of risk. And that means seniors that are probably in the 70 and 80 category age group. So that's why 55 would not probably be the place that we would be focusing on at this point. Much of that comes forward with the financing to make sure that we can demonstrate what's called leasing up. We have to demonstrate that once we build it, that we don't have the finance company sitting back waiting for us to be able to lease it. I know we all know that there's a lot of need out there. And so it would be the same criteria that you would see in any of the affordable housing projects that exist here in Colorado Springs now. Senior Heritage, formerly known as soon to be Silver Key Apartments, would be an example of that.
Okay, and then I had a couple other questions with that. Are utilities included with the rent and cable? And will case managers be working with the residents throughout their stay?
Fantastic questions, Jennifer. So what we've got right now, that 800,000 gap that I was talking about, that part of those dynamics relate to a lot of those different nuances. Right now, I do have it that the rates, the utilities will be included in the rent. And I think that administratively, that reduces the cost to manage all of the payments for the utilities and making sure people have access to, safe, healthy environments to live. So I think that there's a few reasons why I want that to be in terms of where we go. But again, that's negotiable based on what we're able to do with the financing. So that's one piece. The second piece is when we have case managers and other support. In the design of the building, we actually have allocated 2 spaces for therapeutic services to be offered. So we'll have clinical services, counseling available. We will have case management available. We will have navigation available. All the strength of what we have from Silver Key will be available to the residents there. And then also, because it'll be part of the community, it'll have a community support on site, and meaning that people would be able to use the Connection Cafe, even if they're not residents there, because we have one at Silver Key, but this one will be one that may be a little bit more for that peer-to-peer support.
Perfect. Thank you.
Yeah. Jennifer, that's it. I was waiting for a whole lot more. I'm getting anxious.
I know, it seemed like a lot more. Well, I could ask some more. I do have a lot just trickling in my head, but you kind of answered it with the clinical and the counseling and therapy, because I was going to ask about older adults with behavioral health issues, caregivers who are, visiting the family. And I guess also with the veterans, because they're on a limited income, so are most older adults, and that 30% for their their income going to the cost of rent, is that adjusted at any point if they are well below the poverty line?
Yeah, and those particular, those 5 to 7 units that are VA supported, actually that they've got a formula that allows for it to be able to adjust according to their income. So
Okay.
if we get those designation of vouchers for those rooms, the qualification, of course, would that be veteran status and that they would meet the low income, and then that would be titrated based on whatever their income status is. So that'll work out well. And the good news is that for the veterans that move into our facility, assuming that we get approved for these vouchers for the veterans, because Silver Key has a full supported companion program, vets supporting vets, we will have a way to be able to bridge, because the needs of veterans are oftentimes different than general population in the older adult community, and we will be able to have the cultural response for the military needs with that as well, even outside of the case management and advocacy.
And so then I have another question.
Oh, okay.
So with the case management, the navigators, the patient navigators in the Silver Key housing, are you looking at how to transition an older adult from living in the apartments to a long-term care facility?
For sure. That's something that Silver Key does now in supporting many of the people that live in different affordable housing projects. When they decline to the point, our team is able to help to identify different options. Just as a side, the other support that we have available, that we have limited capacity, but is in guardianship. Oftentimes individuals become so impaired, but they don't have any family or friends that would be willing or able to take that guardianship role. I anticipate that some of the people that reside in the apartment complex may become wards of Silver Key because they lose capacity. And in that regard, that's when they would transition to skilled or assisted living. If they weren't able to make their own decisions based on loss of capacity, then Silver Key, I believe, would be able to step in as a support to that in those situations.
And then do you allow pets?
I don't know. I love pets. That's what I heard you say. And then you said, do you allow pets? I heard again.
Yeah, no, I love pets. So I know a lot of people love their pets. So, I know that's a big hindrance. If you can't take your pet with you where you go, then you won't go.
Jennifer, I'm going to bring that forward because I would definitely would like to have pets there. We have not made a decision one way or the other on that. And let me tell you the importance of companion support. I think all of you know this. There's been 2 clients that I'm aware of specifically whose pets have passed away in the last year. And within 2 weeks, the individual passed away. We hear frequently that when husbands pass away, frequently wives either survive and thrive past that. But oftentimes the other situation is when the wife passed away, it's not very far along that the husband doesn't stay connected, that type of thing. Companion is another example of that. And Jennifer, I have not really truly given that enough attention with our developer at this point. So let me see what we can do with that.
Okay, and then I have just another, I'm sorry, this is gonna be the last one, I swear. What if there's an older adult who is caring for an incapacitated adult child, but they are at or below the poverty level? Could they apply for housing?
Yeah,
and stay in those apartments?
They could, so for the 2-bedroom that I was talking about, both would have to qualify at that lowest income, but yes, they would be eligible for that. And even in the 1-bedroom, this is a little bit of an interesting dynamic here, is that we know that right now, going back to Mary's comment about how food access is a big issue, when COVID became a challenge, also at the same time, United Way had changed their focus. United Way of Pikes Peak United Way, Colorado Springs had changed their focus around kiddo programs. And so Silver Key has been a long-term partner and recipient of those funds. And so what I wondered is, what kind of support are we putting in play for kids? And actually, we did a data review, data mine, and we had 270 kiddos served by the pantry through grandparents taking care of grandkids. And so we actually got funded through United Way under the kiddo part because of the amount of impact. So Jennifer, what I was saying in all of that is that if you have a grandparent in a single unit apartment, they could choose to have a grandchild in that single unit because of the laws allowing for that. And so I guess I say that in that like any one of us, we would be able to have a grandchild stay with us. That would be in the case in this regard as well. But we only have a limitation of the few 2-bedroom apartments, and they both would have to qualify if they were both renters.
Perfect. Thank you.
Yeah.
I have another question going back to something you said earlier on where I'm trying to figure out what the numbers mean. You said something earlier on about 30%, 40%, 50%, 30% of what for what?
Yeah, what it's called is area median income, and what it is that it's a poverty line is what it is. So less
Okay.
than $1,900 a month is really where the top would be, and many of the individuals are just on Social Security, et cetera. So they're going to be able to qualify for the what we're offering. I'm not even worried about the larger amount. What I'm worried about are those that are at the $700, $800 mark. That's why I want to get to as many of those apartments availability as possible, and that's in that 30%.
So that's different than the 30% of their
Exactly.
income devoted to
Exactly,
rental.
right.
Wonderful. Now I understand.
Yes, ma'am.
Sure.
Want to let you know that I'd be happy to work with you. A couple of areas that I see concern about with designs. Most places these days go to all digital appliances. And for folks who are experiencing vision loss, that is a real hindrance. A lot of these digital appliances only work on if, the washer starts and you have to look at the lights to know whether the cycle is what it's doing or what cycle to put on your screen. And that doesn't work for people who are with limited vision. The other one is, this is a weird one, but I had someone call me a couple of weeks ago and she was moving into a place and the blinds are between the glasses of the window and you have to use a switch to open them and close them. Does everyone know what I'm talking about? They're automated so they actually close. And if you don't see, how do you know if they're open or closed? She was devastated. She's like, you don't know when to dress and when not to. And so something like that is a real disadvantage. And then the other point is your contrast of colors for your counters and the appliances and how they go together with someone. You don't know, you could get someone in there with low vision, and if the counters are all white and the sink is white, then there's no contrast for them to at all use what limited vision they have to know where to set the cup on the counter, and it's going to end up in the sink and there's broken glass or whatever. So those are kind of some clues that I'd like to work in with your program and help you if that would be acceptable to.
Rebecca, that would definitely be acceptable. And just so you know, as we move into the design features of the actual appliances and things like that, and then I appreciate what you're saying about the contrast of colors. We're not yet to that point. So this is a great conversation at this moment. What's going to happen is that we will be putting those design features in our application probably in a month and a half is when we'll start to work through those. So I'll outreach to you then and kind of get your feedback on what that would look like. And the reason why we're not doing that is we're kind of going to the gross arrangement of what would it take to establish the actual units, and then from that be able to dial into what can we afford to be able to do in that regard. And I would love to have some conversation with you because I really don't want to minimize the fact that we have a population that has low vision just by nature of age sometimes, and that would be something that we would want to be very much mindful around.
And like, the layout of where, their door is in reference to where their mail is, their box or whatever. I had a client that, couldn't even get to her mailbox, and she doesn't live in, she lives in El Paso County, but she couldn't even get to her mailbox because it's not near her home, and the post office absolutely refuses to deliver it any other way. So she's losing vision. She couldn't get to it, and it's very, very upsetting. And so I think that those kinds of situations just have to be in the mix of what's available. Just like the lady on was asking about the deaf, those kinds of things. There's things that have to be available. Your smoke alarms should have some lights, for example, for the deaf. You never know. who's going to rent these apartments.
Yeah, for
Right.
sure. And just so you know, for the post office, we have a centralized post office at the first entry of the building. So it'll be easily accessible, large space for wheelchair support, that type of thing as well. That's what's designed right now, is that that's all centralized within the building, easily accessed. We have talked about having all of the cabinetry and the countertops. What could happen is that if we made them all fully accessible, those will all be lowered by, I believe it's between 8 and 10%, maybe, but it's 8 to 10% lower than what maybe the traditional development would be. But we've elected not to do that. Instead, what we've done is we've created that we can do them easily modified. So there's new technology that allows for those to be adjusted down. And so those are the ways that we're presenting, that we're going to create the options as people age in place. But I do want to honor the fact that we want to make sure that we've got the lights available for sure for the smoke alarms, and then also to ensure that we've got the support around the different appliances, that they're not just based on the digital, that there's a different way for people to be able to do that.
Right. And I'd be happy to work with you when it comes to that time. Okay?
Awesome. And just so you know, the framework that we're using on the most gross part of the development is out of, there's 2 places that we've been working with, AARP being one of them. Actually, there's 3. AARP being one of them. The second one is Colorado Senior Homes. They have a very large campus that goes from independent living all the way to skilled care. And so we've been looking at their design features on all of that different framework. And then also we've been, the most recent one that was established here in Colorado Springs was Hattler May. And so kind of taking what Hattler May has done and taking the best practice of those 3 different systems to be able to hopefully get the best solution. But again, the consult that you would provide, Rebecca, in that regard would be very helpful.
And you'd be surprised how these long-term facilities don't accommodate their residents. That some of them can't even read the menus that they hand out, or don't know what's the activities going on because they don't make them in their large enough print for them. So you'd be surprised of how you may think that they're accessible, but it's really tough for them,
So just similar to, sorry, David, I keep kind of picking on you, but similar to David, we also are an age-friendly designated organization. This particular property will be under that same category. So all of the contrast of colors, any of the publications will be to the right font and what was been defined by age-friendly. So we will continue to carry that forward in our designs and in all of our communication with the eventual residents and the residents of. The last thing I will share about that is that as we're moving forward in our application, we forecast that there's probably going to be no less than 17 different projects that are applying for this funding out of this community. They will only fund 2 likely in the entire state. So if you think about how many more come out of different parts of the state, it could be many, many, many. So Rebecca, I want to assure you that the reason why we think we have one of the most compelling applications is because Silver Key has been doing this kind of work for 50 years. And so we're taking the strength of what we know about senior care, senior access, senior affordability, and taking all of that, and that's moving our application, I believe, higher into being very competitive. I will also let you know that the Colorado Springs Health Foundation, in their $100,000 support for our application, I think they received so many applications from this community, and the fact that Silver Key was able to demonstrate the importance of what we're doing. If I know you're asking me a lot of questions about this, I have a question for you. If you could think about anybody, either yourself or the organizations you're involved with, or any of the people that you're connected with that could help to support our application as we move forward with that, I would ask you to think about that and let me know if you've got those connection points. We will be a solid application, no doubt. It's a highly competitive effort. And if we don't win this round, which I hope we do, and I think we've got a good shot at it, we will continue to apply to be able to bring this to an eventual happening here in Colorado Springs and maybe other parts of the Tri-County area eventually.
Well, you mentioned that. What is the organization you're applying to? Who are you applying to?
The Colorado Housing Financing Authority, CHAFA is what it's called. And they're the ones that allocate the tax credits for us to be able to do this effort.
We had another question from Mary. Is that correct? You want to turn on your microphone? Mary? Mary, can you turn on your microphone?
There, got it. Okay, I thought you were just going to read it. My question was, how many people are already on the list for these 50 apartments?
Well, that's an interesting question, Mary. So I'll tell you how many people are on the list for affordable housing just in the community. It's 1,500 people are on a list. And so right now we are not accepting any applicants for this. By the way, time frame, we are probably out 2 to 3 years to actually lease this up because we have to get the approval for the funds and then we've got to build the building. But we continually hear calls all the time. Can I get on the list for Silver Key Apartments? And we don't have it. We don't have once we get the tax credits, we're much more open to creating a list. But until we get that initial approval, Mary, it's like everywhere else. We've got about 1,500 people that are waiting for apartments across Colorado Springs and El Paso County. And that is why I think we're a compelling application as well.
So I'll pitch.
Thinking it was probably that bad. Okay.
Thank you.
I'll say one last thing here, just to let folks know in the room and on the Zoom call. Jason did share a purple folder and he has mentioned that there's an $800,000 gap. And so if folks are at all compelled and interested and care about affordable housing, now's the time to give Silver Key a little extra support.
Thank
So, this is really the tipping point for sure and very important for our community. And for those in Park and Teller County, believe me, myself and Jody are going to be having conversations up there in Park and Teller County too. So stay tuned.
Thanks, Melissa.
Well, thank you for having it where there's bus service, because that's one of the biggest issues with senior housing is when there isn't any bus service. A new building just went up in Rock Rimmon with an agency in the city who serves people with low income and disabilities. And I tried to talk to them about how there's no bus service there before they ever decided to put the property there. And we had a conversation and they said, well, they'd already decided it. And now they've tried to fight with the city about getting bus service there and there's no answers. They're not going to do it. And so people are going to be very upset when they rent this apartment and they can't even get a bus to them to go anywhere.
Yeah.
So thank you for having your properties accessible to transit.
Thank you.
Well, as you can see, there's a lot of interest in this area. I think we're all interested in this issue of affordable housing for seniors. And we know how important your project is. And we'll try to do anything we can to support your work and share ideas as
I appreciate that. And just so you know, the handout that I gave here for those that were able to be here in person, if anyone's interested on the call that would want to have the documents emailed to you, I certainly can do that as well.
well,
So thank you, Bea.
that'd be wonderful. Thank you for giving so much of your time
Absolutely.
for this very important issue. We're going to move on then to our regular agenda items, membership. Marilyn.
Okay. I think what we need to throw out today is that 3 of us have terms that expire on the 31st of December and can renew for a second term if so wanting to do. That would be myself, Bill, and Elaine are up for renewal. So think about that, as looks like we're not having a Thanksgiving meeting and, December option to, decide that. So let us know what your thoughts are about that.
Will you be contacting these people, Marilyn?
Bill, Elaine, yes, sure.
Bill and Elaine.
Sure.
Yes,
Will
that'd be
do.
great.
And then I was just given one interested person that might be wanting to serve on AAA, on our RAC committee. So I will move forward on trying to find out more about this person who seems very interested and has served on other AAA boards and committees before. So we'll investigate that. As we are also still having the luncheons and discussions for our communities of color to try to find out if there are, people that we can reach out to find anyone interested in membership. I think like last discussion was, some of the churches and places where might be able to be looked into to, reach out to people, our communities of color for their interest in being RAC members. And I think that's all.
Great, thank you, Marilyn. Jen, did you have information to share from the Strategic Review Subcommittee?
Meeting a few weeks back, and we're able to update our document that we've shared with Melissa. Had a very robust discussion actually about the housing project. So I really appreciate Jason's conversation and the excellent discussion that was had that we can take back to SRS. So thank you so much, Silver Key, for being here and addressing some of those questions. I think our next meeting will be scheduled. It's either November or December, but we certainly welcome all of the RAC to join that group if you are so inclined. And other than that, I can't think of any other updates unless, Melissa, you've got some on the top of your mind. I apologize, I'm driving while I'm on this call, but that's where we're at. And thank you all so much who have joined and participated so far.
Thank you, Jen. The director's report. Do we have a report from Jody? Oh dear, I got an email. Yes. Now let's see where it is. Jody, here we go, director's report. All right, let's see. I'm away at the quarterly C4A meetings. My apologies for missing being with you today. There's a lot going on at PPACG. Here's some highlights. Open enrollment is going on currently. Calls are up from last year, so the SHIP counselors are very busy right now. I can verify that. I was in Monday morning and the calls were coming in nonstop. Senate Bill 21290 RFP was open this week, and Melissa and Jody will be writing the grant to provide support to the Pikes Peak Elder Justice Center. Is there more information on that? Or what is that?
So this is Melissa. And so the Pikes Peak Elder Justice Center is a nonprofit that was given its 501c3 in May. And this entity is the outcome of the 15 years of work, 15 plus years of work of the Pikes Peak Elder Abuse Coalition. The Pikes Peak Elder Abuse Coalition has been working on education and outreach to prevent elder abuse and neglect. It had created an elder shelter program. It does guardianship volunteer advocacy work. And so over the course of time, the coalition realized, especially from the elder shelter perspective, and then also from a concept of a forensic team, that we needed a resource in the Pikes Peak region that would provide especially those two services. So when an older adult is a victim of abuse or neglect and they need a place to stay immediately, the elder shelter program is able to house those individuals in a couple of different ways. And I won't go into detail about that. What we will do is try to get the Pikes Peak Elder Justice Center folks to come and do a presentation to the RAC at some point. And so, yes, the State Unit on Aging folks received about $15 million through the legislators up at the state level. And the State Unit on Aging is looking at how to delineate out that $15 million minus an amount that has to go for administration fees at the state level. And one of the projects that they want to consider is the Pikes Peak Elder Justice Center. And most likely it will be funded. So That's the really good news. And we have been waiting and waiting to hear when the deadline was for that. And we finally now know it's December. So that grant needs to be written and turned in. So it's very exciting.
Very exciting work.
Yep.
Sounds great. Jody goes on to tell us that vaccine education funding is still anticipated, but not yet received. We anticipate sharing some of these funds with other AAAs to create a statewide vaccine education campaign. So that's still coming up in the future. And then he says, finally, ARPA funding, ARPA funding is expected at the end of the year, and plans for usage will be developed similar to CARES Act funding. Any details on that you can give us, Melissa? Hurry up and wait. And ARPA, that's
So the ARPA is the American Recovery Plan Act money that's coming down from the federal level. And, you know, our organization, the AAA, will be receiving our own allocation of that, which is going to be made available for our contracted organizations and businesses like the one sitting in the room today to apply for additional funding, as well as opening it up to the community to apply for projects. The idea with that money, of course, is that it's really supposed to be about kind of a one-time infrastructure investment. So that makes it always a challenge. You know, what can those services look like when we're really not, you know, paying for staff? We're looking at trying to pay for kind of a, you know, some infrastructure kind of development for new programs, et cetera. But, you know, the money is time limited. And so again, hurry up and wait. We have been waiting and waiting for it.
okay. Well, that's Jody's report. Next up on the agenda is my report, and you would have thought that I anticipated Jason's presentation. As you know, I'd like to look at some of the numbers related to the seniors and their needs. And so I've got some of that information to share right here. Right, you've got to allow me to share my screen. Here we go.
For people on the Zoom call, can you see B's screen now with the median household income figures? Is that showing up for Zoom? Okay,
Yes.
good. We are set.
Okay, and as you know, I've been looking at the 2020 census and trying to look at some of that new data. Here before you, I wanted to start with just how much do seniors earn on average. In this case, if you go down to age of the householder and look at 65 years or older, you can see that the median, meaning the middle earnings for senior 65 and older, meaning half earn more than that, half earn less than that. So our median earnings are $46,360. And that is the change from 2019 to 2020 is down about 3.3%. So in this past year, our incomes dropped slightly. Okay, then let me go on to the federal guidelines, poverty level guidelines. This is part of, well, we're getting to Jason's point here, but these are the 2021 federal poverty guidelines. And basically, if you are in a household of one person, you are considered at the poverty level if you earn $12,880 or below. And here we start running into some of those percentages that we've been talking about. And you're eligible in general. There are a lot of specific rules, but in general, you're eligible for Medicaid if your income is 138% of that 12,000, which puts you at $17,774. And of course, then you can see those numbers go up when you have 2 people in the household, 3, and so on. Come on. Here we go. My next chart looks at poverty rates by age from 1959 to 2020. And our 65 and older group is this more purplish line here, and you can follow on down. You can see on the side that actually we've improved over the last, how many years here. There was a point in time where age 65 and older, 30% of those individuals were at the poverty level for that particular time period. But we're still running about 9% of our seniors are at the poverty level. And then one more chart. And this one, sort of people with income below specified ratios of their poverty threshold by age. Here, I'd like you to look over to the right column. And here you can see that what percent of seniors 65 and older are below 200% of the poverty level. So I go back to that first chart where we talked about the federal poverty level is $12,880. So 25% of us seniors are twice that, or we're earning $24,000, $25,000 a year. And then you can still see that 18.5% are below 150%. 13% below 125%. And then we're back to that 9% where we said about 9% of seniors are at the poverty level. Well, that's what below 100% would mean. And then we still have about 3.9% of the population that earns half of that. They're earning $6,440 a year and trying to somehow survive. I guess what I just basically wanted to share with you today is some of these real numbers for seniors in terms of income and why we need that housing project so much, and why we need a lot of other of the services that you're providing. You've got a lot of seniors out there trying to survive on very little income. Any comments or questions?
This is Jason, just a comment for clarification. So the below 100% at that 9, in the affordable housing that we're talking about, all of the population that we are intending to serve will be there for sure. But this is a good illustration that if we can get that 800,000 down, pay that, get rid of that somehow, and increase even more money towards this, we will be working to be able to address that 3.9. So that's why it's important that we raise the funds to be able to not only clear that gap, because that'll be the 9% and the 3%. But if we can get even further, we're really talking about that 3.9%, just for context. So thank you for sharing that.
Right. That I saw the relationship
for
between
sure.
what you were describing and what I was going to be presenting today. Definitely a connection there. Any other comments or questions? Okay, so I will stop sharing my screen. And now I gotta go find my way back to Zoom. Okay. There we go. You got rid of me. That's good, Melissa. Okay, very good. Okay, we have no action items. Are there any other discussion items? We'll talk about events in just a moment. Any other discussion items for today?
B.
Yes,
I
Marilyn?
think one item up for discussion is, we continue to try to work on this adopt a senior thing that, we are still looking for, people to do this. But one thing, Rebecca, that you have mentioned that there are, like this individual, this man that was out raising his hands to try to find, something to help with food. And the Adopt a Senior program is something that we just have kind of wanted to do for a little help one time for someone, whether a gift card for groceries, items to wear, warm things, just some basic needs. Is there anyone that you think would fit into that kind of thing with the group that you work with?
Oh, I'm sure that, there's someone who could benefit from something like that. Yes.
Okay.
Like every other population, the need is there. It's just sometimes hard to know exactly what need to match with that person.
Yeah, we would investigate that or have a discussion, and
I'd be happy to talk to you about it. though.
Okay.
Yeah.
okay.
That
Thanks.
sounds great, Marilyn. That would be wonderful if the two of you would talk about that particular
We'll
issue.
do that, Rebecca. All
Sure,
right.
great. Okay. Any other items? Okay, our next meeting. Do we have to set a date? Is that what?
So in looking at December, so again, no meeting in November. So the next meeting would be in December, and it could happen on the 2nd or it could happen on the 9th. And
Those would both be Thursdays at
Uh-huh.
10 a.m.
Yeah,
Okay, 2nd or 9th. Okay.
And I think the preference kind of typically has been to do it sooner at the beginning of the month. But that's, up for discussion, I think.
Do I have anybody have a preference? Any of the members have a preference? Would you, since we don't have the November meeting because of Thanksgiving, would you prefer the 2nd or the 9th? Marilyn? Rosemary? 9th?
Either for me, but I was going to say the 2nd.
Okay.
Earlier the better, but the 9th would work also.
All right. Anybody online have a preference?
I can do either.
I'd go with the 2nd. Carol Parks,
Carol, 2nd?
2nd.
Okay. Eric? Anybody? Mary?
I can do either, B.
Either. Okay. Mary? The 2nd? Okay, seems like we have, we're leaning toward the 2nd. So let's go ahead and set that meeting date then. We'll meet on December 2nd at 10 a.m. Thank you. And we can still have our executive meeting in November. That would still work. So let's go ahead with that on the first Tuesday at 10 a.m. Okay, anything else? Any other events you want to tell us about? Something happening?
Rosemary, do you want to share anything?
I was putting that on my calendar. Sorry about that. So November is actually Alzheimer's month, and then it is also not senior. Let's see, you caught me off guard. Caregivers month. And so in lieu of that, I wanted to also share that we did start our Fountain Valley Senior Center Caregiver Support Group. And that is on the third Monday at 1:30. If you need some information, let me know. So make sure you're saying thank you to all those caregivers out there because they certainly deserve it. Thanks, Melissa.
Anybody else have something to share? Well, thank you so much to everyone for being here today. Thank you for our guest presenters. Really appreciated your presentations today. And thank you. We're running a little later perhaps than usual because I really wanted to have this discussion about housing because it's been an issue we're all interested in. So looking forward then to seeing all of you December 2nd, 10 a.m. Okay, thanks so much. Have a great day.
Everyone.
See you soon.
Yeah. Oh, sure, we could talk. And maybe we could use that. Yeah, sure. And some, what we do is we try to provide this, we did it last Christmas. Okay. And Melissa found